We have with us Dr. Musharraf Hussain, who is the Chief Executive of the Academy Institute here in Nottingham. Dr. Musharraf, help us understand the Qur'an and what it might say for interfaith relations.
I think one of the prominent qualities and names of God that's mentioned in the Qur'an is the kind, the loving, the generous, the God who cares for his creation. And the expectation is that those who believe in him should also reflect those beautiful qualities of goodness, kindness, and care for others as well. With that in mind, the Quran gives very clear guidelines on how to live with others. It talks about and preaches how to live in a diverse society as well. So there are four core principles that come out from the Quran's teaching. First is that, the Quran promotes equality, justice, not discrimination. The second principle is there must be engagement and mutual understanding, not disengagement. And thirdly, cooperate and don't create conflict. And fourthly, build friendships and avoid hatred and dislike of others. So those are very important Quranic principles, which really give us guidelines on how we behave with others, how we live in a society when there is conflict and differences. So those are very powerful four principles for bringing us together. And I think that is what forms the basis of interfaith work.
Okay, do you have some examples of this from the Qur'an, these verses that affirm or encourage that?
Absolutely. All these four principles have got very direct, clear verses from the Qur'an. And also, in addition to that, there are many terms the Qur'an uses which clearly not just hint, but actually almost give orders that, we have to live together. And for example, the Quran uses the word arruf, which is really interesting, that we created human beings so that, and we created them different in their different forms. Why? So that they recognize and understand one another. Again, this whole notion of ta'aruf, mutual understanding of one another.
So ta'aruf is like getting to know each other.
Yes. And awwun is another word which the Quran uses. Ta'awanu alal birri wa taqwa. Cooperate in matters of piety and goodness. And that's absolute with anybody. It doesn't say just with Muslims. With anybody who's doing that good work and who is, you cooperate with them. So these are very clear. Another one is wilaya, friendship, that you should be developing that friendship with people around. The very word dawa, which is about invitation actually. So when we are doing our evangelism, I'm using a Christian term there, we don't have that term in Islam. When we want to do evangelism, it's actually termed dawa, which is you invite to the divine banquet. Okay. So it's again, very gentle and a very inviting type of term, Jan.
Okay. So in the Qur'an, though, there are some verses which command fighting, and there's talk about warfare. And so how can we understand this?
Yes.
Well,
every country has something called MOD, Ministry of Defense. And if you ask, why are we spending 2.5% of our GDP, billions and billions of pounds on this? And, the response would be, well, we must have deterrence. We must protect our borders. We must be able to defend ourselves against rogue states, against enemies, and to actually deter attacks. You don't want to be fighting. It's best to actually have deterrence so that you can protect yourself. So whenever the Quran talks about, what are known as, the verses of jihad or verse of sword in the Quran, they're really about this, that look, you need to be prepared and to defend yourself. But it has to be done in just way. The Quran sets very clear, guidelines and what can be done and what can't be done.
So there's these verses called the sword verses, which you mentioned. Can you help us? I mean, if you read them individually, it's go fight the unbelievers.
Yes.
Can you help us understand what that's all about?
Yes. Well, this is verse 5 of Surah At-Tawbah, and it's actually
chapter of repentance.
The chapter called Repentance, Tawbah, the verse 5 of it, and actually it doesn't have. It's not called the verse. It's people wrongly call it the verse of sword. Actually, it's not that. So what happened was, this was when the Muslims had allies who were non-Muslims. So that's really interesting to remember. Non-Muslims were the allies of the Muslims, a proper treaty between them. And there was a treaty that the Meccans would not fight. There would be peace for 10 years. There was this treaty between Muslims and the people of Mecca. But also the Muslims had a treaty with non-Muslim allies and tribes who were not part of the Meccans. But the Meccans attacked the allies of the Muslims. And in response to that, the Prophet said, well, you've now broken the treaty, therefore, this is what was revealed. God gave the permission to fight them, those who fight you and who've broken the treaty, really. In fact, it's very interesting because in that same verse, it says, well, if they want to stop fighting and make peace, then accept that. They will become, and if they want to become Muslims, they are your brothers, then leave them. And if any of the non-believers seek safety from you and they want you to even take them to their places, do so. So actually it's not, I think we have to understand it in the context of that context, that particular context.
So there are other verses in the Qur'an that are, as we might say, general, and these are just specific to that particular time?
I think, wherever we have the verses to do with what is known as qital. Qital is fighting or battles. Wherever it's about the battles, it's really very well qualified. Yes, you're allowed to fight, but make sure that there isn't injustice, there isn't disproportionate, and you don't fight the non-combatants, you don't kill women, you don't kill children, the elderly, and so on.
So it's very much about like a just war approach to.
I think that's a good analogy. Yes.